A very good morning, 7th class. Today we will start our next chapter. This is Hydrosphere. Here is a given some learning objectives that we will read in this chapter. And these are: what is hydrosphere, water cycle, distribution of water, and the waves, tides and currents. Before going about the chapter, let me understand the meaning of hydrosphere. So, let's start the chapter.
Hydrosphere. Friends, do you know something? If you view our planet Earth from the space, it looks blue, as major part of the Earth's surface is covered with water. And this is the reason why Earth is known as water planet or blue planet. And this abundance of water is what distinguishes Earth from other planets of our solar system. Let's know some more things about this interesting feature of our Earth, that is the hydrosphere. We all know all the water on the surface, below the ground and surrounding the Earth comes under hydrosphere. We can also see water in different forms, like in rivers, seas, oceans, snow, rain, glaciers, ice caps, etc. Here, if we observe, water is present in solid form in glaciers, snow and ice caps, whereas it exists in liquid form in rivers, seas, oceans and rainfall. Now, can water be present in gaseous state? Friends, we all have seen the steam coming out from the boiling water. This steam is water in its gaseous state. So we can say water exists in all three states of matter: solid, liquid and gas. Now if we look at the distribution of water in different forms on our Earth, 71% of our Earth is covered with water and the remaining 29% is land. And around 97% of this water is in seas and oceans. And so we call this water as marine water or saline water, as it has more amount of dissolved salts, and so it's not fit for drinking. And the remaining 3% is fresh water. Here we call it as fresh water because the dissolved salt content is very less, and that is the reason why it is fit for drinking. And of the total fresh water, major part is locked in glaciers and ice caps, followed by underground water, and just a small amount is located in rivers and lakes. So we can compare this small portion of water which is available for drinking with the total water available on the Earth. And this is the reason why we must put efforts in conserving water. Here I remember the lines from the rhymes of ancient mariner. Water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. It stands true completely in case of our planet Earth, as we have seen just now that a vast majority of our Earth's surface is covered by water, but only a small portion of it is fit for drinking. Goal in survival of living organisms on Earth. Where there is water, there is life. It is not just the Earth that is majorly covered with water. But do you know, water makes up approximately 70% of humans' body weight. An average person could live without food for nearly a month. But it would just be difficult for us to survive even for a week without water. That's how life. So, to know.
So, students, what you learned? You learned hydrosphere is the name given to the total amount of water on the planet. Got it? The frozen part of the Earth hydrosphere is known as Hydrosphere. Now, this is the second term, second learning objective, that is water cycle. Let me understand the meaning of water cycle. Water moves in a continuous cycle, changes from water vapor to ice and then back to water. This continuous interchange of the forms of water on Earth is called the water cycle or the hydrological cycle. Water from the surface of the Earth evaporates on heating and changes into water vapor. The water vapor is carried up in the air where it cools. On cooling, water vapor in the atmosphere condenses, changing back to its liquid states, the form clouds. When cloud particles get too heavy to remain suspended in the air, they fall to the earth as precipitation. Look at the image. Now, the distribution of water. The water available on the earth's surface is of two types, fresh water and salty water. 97% of the earth's water is found in the oceans and it is salty. Only 3% of water on earth is fresh water. Now, fresh water. Fresh water is water that has very little salt dissolved in it, unlike the water found in the oceans and seas. 69% of the fresh water is frozen in the form of glacier and ice sheets. 30% is in the form of underground water. 1% of the fresh water is found in the liquid on the surface of the earth as a stream and lakes. The point at which water is found beneath the earth's surface at any given place is called the water table. Aquifer are water bearing layers of rock under the ground. Now, ocean water. Oceans form the major part of the hydrosphere. All the oceans are interconnected. Rivers and underground streams which carry dissolved salts with them empty into the oceans. Now, oceanic or marine water are always moving. Here is given the movement of water in the oceans. This constant movement is mainly due to three factors. These are the force of winds, temperature difference between different parts of the sea, and gravitational force. The three main movements noticed in the oceans are waves, tides, and currents. Waves. The rhythmic up and down movement of water on the surface of the ocean causes waves. Waves can range in the size for small ripples to massive tsunamis. The most common factor for the formation of waves is wind. As a wave moves, it forms a succession of crests and troughs. The horizontal distance between two crests is called the wavelength. the height of a wave is determined by three factors, and these are the length of time which the wind has blown over the waters, the distance of open water over which the wind has blown, called fetch, wind speed. The breaking wave is called swash, and the receding wave is called backwash. Now, this is a backwash. Now, tides. Tides are the periodic rising and falling on the sea level due to the gravitational pull of the moon and sun acting on the rotating earth. Tides are of two types: high tides and low tides. During high tides, the waters rise in the tidal belt. If the sun, the moon, and the earth are lined up in a straight line, the sun's gravitational pull gets added to the moon. The tides then have a higher tidal range. During these times, the high tides are especially high and the low tides especially low. Such tides are called spring tides. They occur on full moon days and new moon days. Areas that are alternately submerged and exposed by the rising and falling tides are called tidal flats. Okay, if the sun, the moon, and the earth are lined up in a straight line, the sun's gravitational pull gets added to that of the moon. The tides then have a higher tidal range. During these times, the high tides are especially high and the low tides especially low. Such tides are called spring tides and they occur on full moon day and the new moon day. Tides, uses of tides. Tides help in navigation. Ships come into harbor during high tide as the water in the harbor become deeper as this time, and the low tides are used by fisher folk to go out into the open sea for fishing, and tidal power can be used to generate electricity. Tidal action help mix up nutrients and makes coastal region rich in marine life. During high tide, when the water gushes in towards the land, a lot of fish comes along with it. Tides keep the mouths of the rivers free of sediments by carrying the sediments far away into the sea. This is a picture of tidal power schematic. Now currents. Currents are a stream of water flowing constantly through the ocean in definite direction, and they are caused by variation in temperature of ocean water, the rotation of the earth, the prevailing winds, differences in density and salinity of water in different parts of the oceans, the shape of the land. Current moving from the equatorial region to the polar region are warm current. The Gulf Stream is an example of warm current. And the cold currents move from the polar belts to the tropical belt. The effects of ocean currents. Ocean currents influence the temperature of the region through which they travel. Warm currents increase the temperature of the coast along with they move. Winds that blow over cold currents become cold and dry. Along the western coast of most land masses, these dry, cold winds have led to the development of deserts like the Atacama and the Namib Desert. The convergence of a hot and cold currents lead to the formation of dense fogs that can pose a serious threat to ships. But these areas of convergence also make excellent fishing ground because of the presence of plankton. The water pollution, contamination of both underground and surface water is called water pollution. Contamination makes water unfit for use. Polluted water may contain bacteria, parasites, animal waste, toxic waste, etc. So students, we have studied about the hydrosphere. Okay. First, we studied about hydrosphere. Hydrosphere, what? All the water bodies on the surface of the earth planet, such as oceans, seas, rivers and lakes. Okay. This is hydrosphere. Then after that we studied about the water cycle. What is water cycle? Water moves through the hydrosphere is a continuous cycle. This picture shows the water cycle. The water that we are drinking or using today existed even 1,000,000 years ago. Okay. It just keeps getting recycled. What changes is the form of water. It changes into water vapor, to ice and then again to water. From the sun causes water in oceans, lakes and rivers, etc. to evaporate and rise into the sky. This water vapor collects in the sky in the form of clouds. As water vapor in clouds cools down and condenses, it becomes water again. When water particle in the sky gets heavy to remain in the air, the water falls from the sky in the form of rain, snow, hail or sleet as precipitation. This water again collects in river, lakes and ocean and evaporates into the atmosphere and the cycle continues. This is called water cycle. Is that clear, students? Students, the water cycle has been running on the earth for millions of years. It is continuously replenishing of water back to the earth and has maintained the overall balance of water. Now, after the water cycle, we studied about the distribution of water. Distribution of water. The water on the earth is two types: fresh water and saline water. We are using the fresh water. About 97% of the total water on the earth is found mostly in oceans. As it's salty, as it contains large amount of dissolved salts, mainly sodium, chloride, or the common table salt that we use. Rivers and underground streams that join the ocean carry with them dissolved salts and minerals. These elements keep getting deposited in the ocean, resulting in a large amount of salt accumulation in the ocean. The salt from volcanic eruption also makes them saltier. Students, only 3% of the water is fresh or sweet and is used and fit for drinking. Fresh water is found in lakes, rivers, groundwater and air. The biggest source of fresh water is precipitation in the form of rain and snow. So students, look at this table. Water body, percentage and saline water or fresh water found in this water body. So students, though water is the most abundant substance on earth, as 3/4 of the earth is water, yet there is a scarcity of water because much of the water on earth is not available to us. About 69% of the fresh water is frozen in the form of glacier and ice, and 30% of the water is found from the form of groundwater. Thus, of all the water on the earth, only 1% of the fresh water is available in liquid form to us as stream and lakes. So students, in ocean there is a saline water and percentage 97.3. In ice caps, percentage 2.0, and we get fresh water from ice caps. Groundwater, the percentage of water 0.68, and which type of water found in the underground? Fresh water. Fresh water lakes, the percentage of water 0.009, and which type of water here? Found here? Fresh water. Salt lakes, 0.009 percentage of fresh water, and atmosphere 0.0019 fresh water. One more thing students, I want to tell you, Dead Sea in Israel, also known as Salt Sea, is one of the world's saltiest water bodies. It has salinity of 45 parts per thousand. Because of this salinity, animals cannot survive here. This is why it is called Dead Sea. After the distribution of water, we studied in this chapter ocean circulation. Students, unlike the water of ponds and lakes, the water of the ocean is constantly moving. The movements that occur in the ocean water are mainly of three types. Okay? Waves, tides, and currents. Is that clear? The rhythmic and alternate rise and fall of the ocean water on the surface of the ocean is called the waves. Tsunami. The word tsunami comes from a Japanese word meaning a harbor. Wave. A tsunami is a series of huge waves caused by a violent or volcanic eruptions. Now, tides. The periodic rise and fall of the water level in the seas and oceans are known as tides. Twice a day at regular intervals, the ocean's water advance towards the shore and retreat back from it. When the level of the water in the seas and oceans rises and advances toward the shore, it is called high tide. When the water level fall and start receding or moving away from the shore, it is called low tide. Now after that we have studied spring tides. Neap tides. And also we have studied importance of tides. After the ocean circulation, we have studied ocean currents. More students. These ocean currents are often referred to as rivers in the oceans. And ocean currents are caused by the different factors, and these are unequal heating of water, difference in salinity and density of ocean water, prevailing winds, shape of land mass, rotation of the earth. And after that we have studied warm currents. Clear this one? The ocean currents which move from the equatorial regions toward the poles are called warm current. For example, Gulf Stream. Since the equatorial region gets direct heat from the sun, the ocean in the equatorial region gets heated more than the cold polar region. This unequal heating generates convectional currents and warm equatorial water starts flowing towards the polar region. After that we have studied cold currents. Clear students? And last we have studied influence of ocean currents. So students, these are the learning objectives that we have studied in this chapter. Watch this video attentively and carefully. You can also make the notes and you can write also point to point. Now in next video we will do the question answer and exercise of this chapter. So students, now this chapter is over.